affiliate of the Trendsetter Mentor Group, an exclusive membership. My name is Andrea Bowenzi, and I'm streaming live from beautiful Tucson, Arizona, and I wanted to thank you all for tuning in to the #1 talk show for thriving women. We call ourselves the Thrive Tribe, and that represents women like you that are progressing, flourishing, and thriving. Our mission each week is to inspire, inform, and empower our listeners to thrive and not just survive on your life's journey. So I wanted to take a moment and introduce you to our Thrive Tribe. Today joining us, we have Noelle Ramos, a registered representative for CAP Investments out of Grayson, Georgia. Sabrina Protic, author and certified life coach, Tampa Bay, Florida. Stacy Solie, menopause coach out of Palm Harbor, Florida. Carmen Miller, attorney at Carmen Miller Law, representing Holiday, Florida today. And we also have Thriving Women Business Correspondents joining us today. We have Deidre Pittman, tax strategist, also from Tampa Bay, Florida, and Dana Washington, real estate investor. And as well, we've got joining us from Flossmoor, Illinois, Chicago area, Sherry Thompson, financial coach. So we're very excited to be together today. Tuesday is our day of the week that we get to hang out with you all, and we're excited. Wanted to acknowledge and thank also for those of you that are out there as those essential employees, our local, national, international listeners. Thank you guys, everybody who's joining us. Maybe you've got some time to tune in and get pumped up. Maybe you're just getting caught up on the day's events. I know the world's events has got us all working extra hours in different ways. So we wanted to show some recognition and honor our doctors, nurses, firemen, policemen, and the first responders that are waking up every morning and night around the world to serve and protect. Thank you guys for jumping in there and leaning into this, what can be scary. There's a big unknown. So we appreciate you going out there and going to work. We're dedicating this show to their highly publicized requests from all of us that I stay at work for you, you stay at home for us. So we are certainly doing our best to lean into that, staying home and trying to stop this curve of the coronavirus. Definitely something that's been hitting many of us, everybody, hard over the last few weeks. So last week, Thrive Tribe had a discussion on how you were dealing with your mental health due to social distancing and sheltering in place at home with your spouses, partners, and children. So we wanted to take it a step further and examine the effect that it's having on healthcare providers, first responders, even patients in the hospitals, and families that are quarantined due to the virus. The data is of serious concern, and we need to be conscious of the facts and start seeking options on how to deal with our family's mental health. So I wanted to start with some of the data. Let's start with some of the facts on how the coronavirus is affecting our mental health and what can we do. So Dr. Faraz reported the worsening mental health is affecting the general population. A recent Axios Ipsos poll showed that 22% of Americans reported that their mental health has gotten worse during this pandemic. Just 1 week later, that number had climbed to 35%. So recently it was 22%, and a week later it's climbing up to 35%. Pretty significant. Healthcare workers have felt frustrated, anxious, and vulnerable about facing patients infected with a contagious and potentially with PPE. So PPE is personal protective equipment. Some healthcare providers have taken refuge in their basements or garages or have completely moved out of their home in the hopes of safeguarding their family members from the virus. So we are seeing a big shift in how we are not only providing care, receiving care, but spending that time with our families during this time. So around the country, grieving loved ones have been barred from visiting their critically ill family members. The stories of patients in intensive care units spending their last few days of life alone have shocked the country. many elderly folks will have to undergo emergency surgeries without care and support of their families. And it's possible that thousands of pregnant patients will give birth without their partners by their sides. So even pediatric patients are being affected, as many children's hospitals have moved to limit visitation. The virus will undoubtedly unleash an unprecedented level of psychological trauma on both healthcare providers and patients. These concerning facts have inspired Thriving Women to have an open discussion on what we can do moving forward. But first, certainly being conscious of the impact of the crisis has had on our own mental health. And then we're going to learn new life strategies that can be used to combat negative events in our life and thrive, not just survive. So to help us do that, we've invited a couple of guests today. Janine Bolin, author and founder of The 8 Gates. Janine's organization helps health-based solopreneurs achieve clarity and focus on personal growth. And by systematically building skills in meditation, self-assessment, and vision creation, you get out of the day-to-day fog of that entrepreneurship and achieve the activation needed to accomplish the freedom and prosperity you want for yourself and for your loved ones. So we're excited to have Janine lean in today. We've also invited to the show today a new guest, Stephen Smith, who's a managing member from Your Home Doctor, a lifestyle enrich program, where there's no per visit fee telehealth services, providing time-saving, easy-to-access healthcare for you and your entire immediate family. It's convenient, and there's prompt phone or online visits with a U.S. board-certified physician whenever needed, and that is 24/7. So we're honored to have both Janine and Stephen on the show today. Welcome, guys. We're going to take a quick sponsor break, and when we come back, we will begin our discussion on why should we become conscious of our mental health and what are the warning signs that our mental health is suffering. So we will be right back.
Thriving Woman is sponsored by Trendsetter Mentor Group, an exclusive membership for mentorship. TMG is an exclusive Facebook mentoring membership for thriving entrepreneurs with a culture of caring and sharing. TMG's mission is mentoring, inspiring, and empowerment. Now, if you are a thriving entrepreneur and inspired to surround yourself with like-minded peak performers, then join TMG's exclusive membership group on Facebook by sending a member request to the Trendsetter Mentor Group. We are the membership for mentorship. Back to the Thriving Women Talk.
Awesome. Thank you, Sherry, and welcome back to Thriving Women, where Thriving Women's trending topic is on the state of our mental health during the coronavirus crisis. So the government's telling us to stay home and to only go outside for food, health reasons, or essential work. We have to stay 6 feet away from each other, and really any other people. And if you've been to the grocery store lately, you will see that they have lined out, they've taped out in the lines some distancing, that you need to stand here just as a reminder to give everybody their space. Also, we're really encouraging everybody. We always encourage everybody, but now it's even more. Wash your hands. Wash your hands as soon as you get home. Perhaps change your clothing if you've been out and you're coming back home and you've got kids like I do. I come home and change clothes immediately. So we're really trying to prevent spreading this as much as we can. But also, I don't even like to go outside. I'm thankful and blessed that I've got some really good friends that they're willing to go outside, and they stop at the store and say, hey, what do you need? So, if you have opportunities like that, take advantage of it. Spending a lot of time at home is not easy. I've got 3 kids ranging in the ages of 16, 9, and 3. And the older 2 are pretty much good. They are good with hanging out and, leaning in their own devices. My youngest is just not understanding why we can't get up in the morning and get ready to go. He just wants to go. He doesn't know where he wants to go, but he's got to go. And so that makes it really tough when you're on this order to just spend that time at home. So, mommy gets I get a little crazy. Not gonna lie. So we have some guests on today that are going to help us kind of sort those out. We have Janine Boland, she's the author and life coach from Longmont, Colorado, and also joining us, Stephen Smith, consultant from Cedartown, Georgia. Before we dig into this important topic of our mental health, Janine, would you mind sharing with our listeners what led you to really the work that you do? What's that purpose? What's your why there? And can you just explain a little bit more about the 8 gates?
Thank you so much, Andrea. It's a pleasure to be here. And hello, everyone. Yes, life has kind of changed pretty drastically for us. What led me to where I am today was a deep-seated need to understand why life worked the way it did. I wanted to see the man behind the curtain. And I was raised around the world. My father was in the military, so I spent my elementary school years in Japan. So living inside with a bunch of people and being in very close quarters happened when I was quite young. And then we moved to the Bahamas, where my dad was stationed at a naval base on a small island called Eleuthera for my middle school years. There I got freedom like I've never been able to experience before, of running up and down beaches with very few people there. But then the time came where we then went to southern Missouri, and that's where I went to high school, and that was the biggest cultural shock I've ever had in my life, was when I came back to the southern Midwest. So that is kind of my whirlwind tour of what it was like for me growing up. What it brought to me was the 8 gates as a concept of what our world is actually like when you bring in your physical body, your emotional body, and then your spiritual body. And when you don't attach any sort of religious underpinnings to it, but you really speak to yourself as a who am I, and you start asking those deep philosophical questions, that is when I came up with, I didn't come up with it, but that's when I adopted the 8 gates, because it was a concept that moved past culture, it moves past any sort of paradigm, and it's a beautiful overlay of whatever life experience a person is going through at that time. So is that kind of what you wanted, dear?
Yeah, and I think that's a great introduction so people can understand where you're coming from, because we have some questions for you, and there's definitely some parallels there. We want to talk about today, we're really focusing on mental health. Why is it important to be conscious of our mental health and avoid those situations and speculations that can fuel the anxiety and depression? Do you mind leaning into that a little bit?
I will be real quick about that, and because it comes back to one thing. You don't have to control your outside world to be happy. And sometimes we get a little confused because we're not really taught that. And so a lot of the work I do is just trying to help people remember what they already know. Everybody that's listening right now, I know deep down already knows you really don't need an external environment to create happiness and joy. And I'm going to use an extreme example, and forgive me for this, but I have been in situations where I've been surrounded by a mob, and they were shouting at me, "Yankee, go home! Yankee, go home!" And they were just shouting at me, and I was 7 years old, and I had no idea why this particular group of people was so angry at me at 7. And I was whisked away by a couple of military personnel because of the situation I was in. But I just wanted to let you know, as I was trying to figure out why they were so angry at me, I had a couple of military people take me to the side and say, "Honey, they don't live in their country." And I was like, "Oh, well, we can leave, right?"
Yeah.
So the thing is, we can't leave. And I think that's what people are really having to come up against is you are surrounded by people in a home, and you can't leave. So what do you do? Because that's what most people do, leave. So you can't do that. So I encourage you to do what the Buddhist monks taught me when I was in elementary school, and that is you can leave by disengaging from what's occurring around you through meditation. Now, I don't mean that you sit cross-legged on the floor and you chant Om, but you can move into a daydream or sort of state where you're like, you know what, I'm going to spend some time by myself. Or you say to somebody, if you're in a one-bedroom apartment, say, and you have 6 people there, and yes, I have lived in that sort of situation, I would say, Mom, can I stay in the corner for a little bit? I'm just going to be quiet for a while, and I just want to move away from the family. And so you had to kind of move into your own being. And the other thing I'd like to address is, please stay in the present moment as much as you can. This is taught in many different paradigms, where as soon as you speculate to the future, or as soon as you move into the past, and you try to bring it into your immediate moment, you will cause yourself anxiety. And be aware of the thoughts that are triggered by that and move back into your present moment. A beautiful example that I was given by a voodoo priestess that was on Eleuthera when I was in middle school, she would look at me and she would go, Janine, what is it that you need right now? And I would go, and I would say, well, I need a drink of water. Okay, well, go get a drink of water. What do you need now? What do you need now? And that's what they're talking about when they say stay in the moment, because so much is changing for so many people. Staying in that moment will keep the fear at bay. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, because it's so easy to get wrapped up and fearful about what's coming. You know, I think what really drives that fear is that unknown and having all those questions and not having the answers. But if you can really hone in and take in, to account of what you can control, all you can do is all you can do. And those simple things like taking the drink of water, going for a walk, isolating yourself in the corner in the other bedroom. Those are things that you can control. The then and the now. Don't really focus on what's coming next. Deidre, I know you had another question.
Yes. Hey, Janine, this is Deidre from Tampa, Florida. How are you?
I am well, Deidre. Thank you for being on the call today.
Listen, so there's this thing on social media, and it's this little girl. She's about 3 years old, right? And she's in the house, of course, with the social distancing, stay at home, stay safe. And she's 3 years old, and she's going off saying, I hate this house. I hate this house. Get me out of this house. Get me out of this house. So this thing is like gone viral. But my question to you is, how can parents best help their children to manage their emotional and mental health during this social distancing that's required?
Right. And when you're dealing with a 3-year-old, we're dealing with somebody who's highly connected to one thing, and that is, I want freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yes.
A 3-year-old, you cannot rationalize with that 3-year-old. That 3-year-old is going to dictate they're going to let the world know what they feel. And there's no turning that off. And so the thing is, instead of going after a situation in a feeling of control, when somebody starts saying, I hate this house, I hate this, I hate that, it's a lot of times they really don't have vocabulary for what they're feeling.
Right.
And so what you can do, and please realize I am not trained as a psychotherapist or anything like that. I have no training in that. I'm trained in meditation and how to watch my thoughts so that they dictate what my feelings will be, or to watch my feelings so that they will dictate my thoughts into a more positive framework, so that my life is of my own choosing, not being forced upon me. Does that make sense? So please realize that I have no training in this. All I am is a mother of 4 children. I homeschooled them, and I have been cooped up for weeks at a time, like with chicken pox and things like that. So I just want to let people know about that kind of aspect. The other thing is, when some child is out of control like that, as long as they're not harming anybody else and they want to yell and scream, you can sit there and say, we do not condone this behavior. That you are out of control. And then if you can segment them, because I don't know how small your house is. You may be in a one-room flat in London. I don't know where you are, right? But if you are in a one-room apartment, sequester them, and then the rest of the family does something else. And as long as they're out of control, you're not going to allow it. But if they start to injure people, they're like, okay, now you're injuring people. Now you're throwing things and you're causing pain to others. You are a disruption. If this continues, you will be isolated to your bed, and then you actually follow that up. So you don't threaten. Threatening is like nebulous, and you're going to give them something horrible and negative if they don't comply. Instead, you be very clear on what you're saying, and you're very clear on what the repercussions are. This is unacceptable. My children actually laugh at me all the time because if they hear the word unacceptable, they're like, oh, somebody's acting like they're 5, because that's what they remember. Is like, that behavior is unacceptable. This is somebody who obviously has crossed a line with mom when they hear that. Your behavior is unacceptable right now. What I would like you to do is find a way to calm yourself, either breathe or do something. Calm yourself. When you're calm, we will discuss this. But until then, you will stay in this place until you can calm yourself and behave. And then the child is given very specific things, like you can breathe, you can this, you can that. If they start throwing and start really acting out and becoming quite physical, then that, in my mind, forgive me, that's just a temper tantrum. And that's not acceptable behavior. I'm not allowed to do that. I want to do that, yes, but, I'm not allowed. So you put them on their bed or whatever is your place, and you say, you're required to be on this bed until you calm down, and you can behave in a more mature fashion. You can behave in a way that we can all coexist together. And you can use whatever words you want for your 3-year-old. But I talked to my children at age 3 like they were an adult. I'd use a big word. This is unacceptable behavior. You are acting out like an animal that is being hurt. Are you being hurt? And then we get them back into their body and we walk through it. So I'm sorry, I tried to make the answer quick, but when you start talking about child rearing, there's a lot of aspects you have to kind of work through.
That's all.
Janine, this is, I'm sorry. Janine, this is Dana Washington. My daughter is 24, and she has actually found some relief in meditation. She's a college student who had to finish school online. She was working, and she is no longer working, so she's finding herself 100% at home. And when that happened, she was not able to sleep for 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks. But she learned meditation through, I think, yoga, and it has actually helped. And she's 24, so that I can contest that does do the job in a lot of cases. I don't know about a 3-year-old, but for my 24, it did the job.
When it comes to the younger children, Dana, what I have learned is I ask them to breathe and to calm themselves, and I ask them to gently roll their eyes to just above their nose, up on their forehead, and I'll actually gently touch that area of their forehead, and I'd say, do you see any pictures? And it's all about distraction, right? And you get them to calm their breathing down because, this is not if a child's out of control, but if you're calming, like they're in a place where they can be calmed, that's how we meditate. And then with the young ones, even the Buddhist monks, with the really young ones, they always made sure that they didn't make them sit any longer than they wanted to. They would just relax them and calm them and ask them if they saw anything or if they heard anything beautiful, or just getting them into their bodies. Yeah. So you can make it pretty, very short.
Great.
Well, Janine, humans are social animals. We are very. I'm social. I'm human. Some are more social than others. I'm very social. But a professor, his name was, I think, Ian Hickey at the University of Sydney's Brain and Mind Center. He told CNBC that prolonged quarantine or social isolation, and that's without compensatory methods in place, will exacerbate anxiety, depression, and a sense of helplessness. So my question to you is, what are some ways that reading, journaling, or even, like you just talked about, calming, meditation, How can those things assist us in minimizing the negative impact of sheltering in place? Because I know I'm not the only one that's losing her mind.
Right, I understand, especially moms and trying to deal with the social dynamic. First of all, please remember something. When you hear these wonderful professors talking about the research that they've done, please realize that they're only allowed to give a sound bite. And if we gave permission to these professors to talk more, they would tell you that when they're talking about quarantine or social isolation, a lot of those studies came from prisoners or people that were in mental health institutions and stuff like that. And so because I don't know what study Professor Hinke is actually talking about, please realize we have a lot more control than a lot of those studies showed. Okay? So first of all, anybody who's listening to this radio show, I know that you are very intelligent because you're reaching out and you're listening to this broadcast, so you're wanting to actually connect. You're wanting to be social. So the fact that you have that desire, you're leagues ahead of most of the individuals that are studied that are in forced isolation experiments or social situations, okay? So let's start with that.
Okay.
Number 2, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So number 2, you have a lot more strength than you're freaking giving yourself credit for. Okay, I'm saying this with as much compassion as I can, but I'm going to call you on the carpet. Oh my gosh, would you stop feeling helpless? You are not 2. Okay, you are able to do so much more than you are personally giving yourself credit for. So I don't know who you're comparing yourself to, but I promise you that if you put on some music and you start dancing, you're going to feel better. So one of the things I learned from shamans that I used to work with, the shamans would always ask 3 questions when it came to your mental health, and that was, when was the last time you sang? When was the last time you danced? When was the last time you created a piece of art? And that means anything. That doesn't mean drawing or sculpting or something like that. What is your art? Is it tissue paper flower arranging, right? So it's like, when was the last time you did origami? Can you make a basic shape, right? So it's like, as soon as we can talk about reading and journaling and meditation and that sort of thing, but really it comes to, if you want to connect with who you truly are at a soul level, that can be done very quickly and easily without even Wi-Fi, because a lot of our people are even separated from Wi-Fi, which is why podcasting is so important right now, is music, art, comedy, dancing. Look at the items that are around you, and can you create a piece of art with that brings you great joy? And I can guarantee you it's been a long time since you've been given permission, like given yourself permission to dance or to sing.
That's true.
Or create some crazy music on an old wash tub and use a pair of sticks, you know. Ever wanted to get into drumming again? Here's your opportunity.
So it's creativity. Yeah, I love it. That's creativity. Right. Keep the brain juices going.
Correct. Yeah. And so sometimes we get stuck into the messaging that we're hearing. We hear a lot about mental health. We hear a lot about the problems and the challenges. What people are trying to do is, and go onto Facebook and you'll see groups popping up everywhere. We have poets that are giving away free poetry and encouraging people to write poems that have never written poems, and they're coaching them through their Facebook groups. You've got other people who are coaching folks on how to be happy when you've been challenged by depression most of your life, and then you've got professional clowns who are on podcasts saying very old, awful puns and jokes, anything to get people to laugh. So find an excuse today to laugh, and a lot of the stuff that is being messaged to you will change.
Wow. I love all of that. Wow. So, Janine, this is Noelle from Georgia. Yeah, sometimes I find myself on Facebook, I'm just trying to find the funny little memes and the funny, just to laugh, because I can't deal with all the negativity, and it's not, negative. It's life right now. So I sometimes have to look for that escape as well. And we keep on discussing mental health. So there's a lot of concerns with mental health and how being in this situation is going to affect everyone, because, you have people are getting bored. They're having inadequate supplies. I mean, I put on my Facebook, I was happy to have an essential person because I get toilet paper. And just the lack of information everybody's giving, it's the not knowing. And a lot of people are facing financial loss right now. And so you wrote a book titled Money, It's Not Just for the Rich. So I just want to ask you, can you share how does financial problems add to anxiety and depression?
Right. So thanks, Noelle. I appreciate that. When it comes to money, we've got so many different situations that are popping up now. We have people who have lost jobs that were already living on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the research that was shown was that they were only $300 from declaring bankruptcy. So most of what I have to share with those sorts of individuals is, yes, you lost a job. Basically, you are what I call a bomb victim. Like when a bomb drops, and unfortunately I've been in this situation, but when a bomb drops in a area, the first thing you go through is what we call hair on fire, meaning you're just trying to make sure that you're secure. So when you lose a job and you have absolutely no financial money coming into a family unit, the first thing is you pull everything out, like almost a Maria Kondo method with the decluttering. In this case, you pull everything out and say, what do we have? And you start focusing on what you have. That'll calm the fear. The very first thing they do in any situation that's an emergency is, what do we have? What is available? You focus super intensely on what you have so that a feeling of abundance actually does manifest in that moment. And I've been through this many, many times in my life. And so we look at the situation and figure out what is left after a hurricane, or I've been through tornadoes, been through a lot of natural disasters. So anyhow, that's the first thing. The second thing is realize this is only temporary. That the situation that you find yourself in is temporary. You're a very intelligent person. You're very disciplined because you went to work every day. All right? You had a job. You were a disciplined person. So don't give yourself a lot of negative self-talk. This is not the place for that right now. Right now, you need to talk about how awesome you are and how fantastic you are as a person, because, and this is more of an American phenomena, we identify ourselves a little too regimentedly with our job. Like we self-identify according to our position or job. And so when you lose that, a lot of people are going, the reason for the mental health challenges is they've lost their identity, so they think. What they don't realize is you're also a husband, you're also a mother, you're also an aunt, an uncle, and so label yourself as, hi, I'm an aunt, I blah, 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 instead of, hi, I used to have a job, right? So that's another thing we can recommend. And then the third thing is when you realize that you're going to be okay because you have water, you have electricity, you have certain things that are running. So as long as you're not running out of food, you're okay. Now, if you find yourself in a position where you're running out of food, get on your phone and start asking for help. There are food banks everywhere in this country, in America. There are also several institutions throughout the world that are here to help you get food. We want you to stay as healthy as you can, but if you're starving, then it doesn't matter what happens to you, right? So you got to find your food. And so those are some of the basics. As long it comes back, as they say, to rice and beans, right? You have rice, you have beans. And I'm Irish. We always are like, if I have potatoes, we can live a long time. So fresh water, shelter, you have your clothing. That's what you need. If you've got that, then you move to the next level of start to worry about money. But get the hierarchy of needs set up accordingly, and you'll be okay.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah,
that's great. Thank you.
I think that's something that is so critically important. Is we really tend not to focus on those four walls. Like you said, we kind of measure ourselves against everybody else, and the basics are things that we just tend to overlook because, but of course we know we need to have the basics, but when we are put into a situation where maybe we lose that income or the job that, as you said, defines you, What's your sense of purpose? So very interesting. Thank you, Janine, for sharing your thoughts on that.
You're welcome, Noelle.
We are going to take a quick sponsor break, and we'll continue our discussion with Stephen Smith on managing members from your home doctor. So we will be right back.
Thriving Women Business Strategy is powered by the LiveWave X39. The LiveWave X39 patch is clinically proven to provide your body with a level of health and vitality that you have not experienced since you were in your youth. Sounds good to be true. This technology is backed by multiple clinical studies and 20 years of development. The LiveWave X39 patch has been demonstrated to provide an abundance of health benefits. If you want to learn more about this life-changing technology, message Daryl A. Johnson on Facebook or email your request to npartners@yahoo.com, and you will receive an introductory video and testimonies on your LiveWave X39. Back to Thriving Women Talk.
Welcome back to Thriving Women Talk. If you're just tuning in, our trending topic today is what is the state of our mental health? And we have discussed solutions with Jean Bolin, who's author and life strategist. And we're going to take the next step and talk about having access to professional assistance in our time of need without leaving the home or involving our employer or health insurance plans. So we've invited Stephen Smith from Your Home Doctor to share how his company is changing the way healthcare is delivered on demand. Stephen, welcome. Would you mind sharing with our listeners your journey to Your Home Doctor? Excuse me. And why are you so passionate about this company?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me as a part of the podcast today. You're talking to an individual that came from a household of a sister, 7 stepsisters, and a half-sister. Been married for 27 years with 2 daughters, so I feel very at home with the tribe today.
Well, welcome.
So, back in 2010, first of all, 30,000-foot view, I'm a tax accountant and business consultant. So when the Affordable Care Act came around in 2010, I really had to dig into the law, understand how it was going to work, because a lot of the aspects of the Affordable Care Act affected tax returns. And so to really kind of get my head around everything that was included in that act, I started attending a number of healthcare seminars and quickly identified a new distribution method of healthcare as telemedicine, and it intrigued me. So to make a long story short, I jumped in head first with the telemedicine industry to really see what it was about, and I found that it was really the spearhead of trying to get individuals to take personal responsibility for their health care. Over the last 10 years, it's really evolved into a very effective method for both individuals and employers to provide the necessary health care that some folks may not have access to. One example that I can give from a personal standpoint is I have a daughter that's a senior in college in San Francisco. Certainly we are out of network in San Francisco because we live in West Georgia. So the telemedicine aspect of being able to give that access to her from her dorm room, bless her heart, she's like her father. 2 times a year, we're going to get a sinus infection. This pollen in Georgia is crazy today. And we can access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a board-certified doctor to help us with those things. And so really it was out of necessity that I learned how telemedicine worked. And as I learned how it could be implemented in the average everyday Joe's life, it really just excited me. Plus, it wasn't doing tax returns.
You know, it's funny that you say that. when you work in that type of environment, you know, tax returns, accounting, financial coaching, anything like that, it feels like it can be very isolating. So when you find something new that really drives you and engages you, and you know, especially in your own personal situation where your daughter can actually and has benefited from this research that you've done, you know, I think that's just, that kind of works into what we were talking about a little bit earlier about being creative. You know, you have this level of expertise, you know these things, you know the laws, but what other ways can you use your brain cells to, you know, help others and really propel this information at a time of need? You know, we've all seen the impact that the coronavirus has had on the healthcare industry. You know, it's been pretty devastating. I think people are afraid to leave their homes. People who are sick are afraid to go and receive care because they just don't know how sick they are or maybe are not. And, you know, I know that I've actually investigated because I've got kids and things happen. They get sick. And it's like,
Right.
gosh, I don't want to take them to urgent care. I don't want to take them to the ER where it could potentially be worse. So would you lean into a little bit more of how this company can provide service, you know, to those that aren't necessarily feeling that coronavirus is a threat to them, you know, in their own immediate home, but how can this help others?
Sure. Well, you know, before this crisis surfaced, one of the best things about telemedicine was the fact that you didn't have to go sit in a waiting room for an hour plus with a lot of other sick people surrounding you. And so I think just, again, as a parent with a college student, it gives me a little bit of a peace of mind that, you know, my daughter is going to be safer by talking to a doctor, you know, from her dorm room than going to an urgent care and emergency room or other type of, you know, doc in the box there to get the treatment that she needs. And really the way that this works is very similar to going to an urgent care. You're going to talk to a nurse right off the bat, and she's going to, you know, triage your symptoms. What's going on today? Why are you calling? You know, what is it that what symptoms do you have? And she's going to notate those into a system just like they would at the doctor's office. And that information is going to be passed on to a doctor who's going to give you a return call. And generally, these phone calls turn around in 10 to 15 minutes. Now, our service says, you know, it may be within the hour, but just out of, you know, my personal experience, the doctor pretty much calls us back immediately. So, you know, again, having the ability to reach out to healthcare and mental health care for that, for you know, for terms of this discussion, is really convenient and puts you in a different level of ability to communicate to the physician that's on the other end of the line. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, and I love it. I love it. I think that, you know, is something that we've certainly, with technology, you know, I think that we have the upper hand there, that we can make the phone calls, send the text message, maybe do a video chat, and reduce that, the chance of, you know, being further infected, or, you know, maybe it's not something as extreme, but you are able to just take care of those matters in your own home with a lot less time. Many of us in the past, you know, you drive from doctor to doctor to doctor till you get an answer, and you spend days just trying to receive care and get maybe an antibiotic. Maybe it's not something that's serious, and you just need a little something, you know. So I think this is definitely beneficial. I know that Carmen had some questions for you. Carmen, are you Are you on with us?
Yes, I am. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Hello. All right, so I'm going to ask you this. How do I know if my healthcare provider offers this sort of telemedicine option? And what's the difference between my own healthcare provider and the one that your company has?
That is a very good question. Thank you so much for asking that. A lot of, not even healthcare providers, but even your current insurance provider may provide a telemedicine option. Here's the difference. The Enriched Lifestyle product that we have is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. Your current healthcare provider is not going to make that available to you 24/7. You are going to most likely have to make an appointment, just as if you were going to the office to see them, and you're still going to have to pay a copay. Our program has no copay, has no deductible that you have to meet. It is a monthly fee, and it is just a different way to distribute healthcare. So that's the primary difference that you're going to see. Now, with the insurance provided, like the Blue Cross Blue Shield offers that, most of the time in those instances, you're going to have nurses that are going to provide the service, and they won't be able to write prescriptions. So all of our doctors are board certified, and they can write a prescription and send it to the pharmacy of your choice.
Oh, okay. Oh, that sounds great. Let me ask you this, too. Are you still HIPAA compliant? Is medical information secure?
Yes, again, in this day and age, a very good question. Now HIPAA came about back in the 1900s, right? Back in '96, and it stands for Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. So basically, it's dealing with protected health information, and the AMA has a telemedicine policy that every one of these board-certified doctors have to abide by. And it's basically maintaining that these doctors who are participating in telehealth, they have appropriate protocols in place to prevent any unauthorized access and to protect the security and integrity of this data. So again, to be able to keep their board certification, these doctors are acting in the same manner as if they were meeting you face to face. So absolutely, to be able to offer the telemedicine services, everything that they do in the way of the protected health information has to meet those stringent HIPAA requirements.
Okay, wow, great. Okay, thank you so much.
Hey, Andrea, I'd like to lean in for a minute. This is Sabrina.
Go ahead, Sabrina.
Oh, yeah, great. Okay, I didn't know if you could hear me. How are you? I was out visiting your website at the yourhome.doctor. I think that's where you're housed, and actually it's a very impressive website. I kind of perused through it. Being a person that's never really utilized this before, so I'm new to this, how can you address the comfort level? Because as you said, this is 20th century stuff. You were intrigued when you heard about it. You kind of answered some of those questions about HIPAA laws and that kind of thing. But tell me about these doctors. So you say the doctors are licensed, and what kind of treatment can we expect with phone treatment? Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Absolutely. Again, that's a great question, and probably one of the most asked questions when we're out talking to folks about our services. And I always refer back to the people who know what they're talking about, right? The American Medical Association has come out, and they have stated that 80% of all visits to doctor's offices, urgent care, and ER could have been handled by a telemedicine consultation. And to me, that is a pretty powerful statement when the AMA is saying that 80% of those total visits could have been handled by telemedicine. And these guys that are providing the service, these board-certified doctors, this isn't their first rodeo, right? I mean, these guys are experienced. We have doctors that range from, doctors that currently literally walked away from their brick-and-mortar practice because they felt like that they could be more effective just being a telemedicine doctor, and they don't have the overhead. We also have emergency room doctors that, while they're waiting for the next emergency to come, into the doors there, they're logged into our system to be able to assist patients with, whatever they're calling in for. And the majority of the calls that are being handled through telemedicine range from sinus infections, rashes that pop up, some respiratory issues that come up. But what we're seeing now that is really gaining traction are those consultations that have to do with mental health care. We also have a program that caters to larger groups, specifically colleges and universities. And we're seeing, even before the coronavirus popped up, a lot of requests to talk to psychiatrists, consultants, to be able to just talk to young people that are in college that are experiencing anxiety. They're experiencing a world that is a lot different than the world that we grew up in. And so a lot of the phone calls that are being handled by the telemedicine world now are certainly going to be those that you would typically see in the urgent care environment. But these doctors, again, remember, they are board-certified doctors. They're professionals. They are going to tell you, no matter what type of consultation you're involved in, if they believe that they can't treat you via telephone or a face-to-face in like a Zoom conference or the tools that our particular vendors use, they are going to refer you to someone that can better serve your particular need in that case. They are not going to try to provide you with care in an environment where they know they can't do that as well as someone or a doctor who might be able to take a particular test, for example, that they wouldn't be able to do online. And so they're very knowledgeable. They are aware of the boundaries that they can serve the patient in the telemedicine environment. And again, these are very professional folks that are taking care of the patient. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you very much. And I'm going to say one thing. I'm happy to see this transition because there are many times that I've been sick, and the last thing I wanted to do was get in my car and drive to a doctor when I knew full well all I needed to do was talk to him for a minute. And so this is going to help with time, taking off from work, not being able to drive yourself to a doctor when all you need is just that phone consultation. So I welcome this with open arms, and thank you very much for your explanation.
No, thank you so much. And one last comment. We are starting to see now large employers have implemented this and have been implementing this for about a decade. But now we're seeing a larger level of interest from small businesses because the cost to implement this per employee, the perceived benefit way outpaces the cost. And again, if you have an employee that can call the telemedicine line and get a prescription, and now a lot of these folks are delivering prescriptions, it certainly saves a lot of time away from the workplace.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that, the time away from the workplace, that's time that it's stressful for many of us. So, taking that time to just go out and make that phone call, like Sabrina said, you know what you need. You just need a quick phone call. Let's get it done. What an awesome opportunity. Thank you, Stephen, for joining us today and elaborating on that for our listeners and also for the hosts. it's definitely something that we need to take advantage of.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, of course. So we're going to take a quick sponsor break, and when we come back, we are going to continue discussing the state of our mental health, and we will be right back.
Thriving Women Life Strategies is powered by Women Entrepreneurial Empowerment. WE's objective is to empower women entrepreneurs through a platform of visibility, education, strategic growth, and development within the networking area. Their doors are open to women of all ages, millennials, new startups, smart business, and those needing a boost. If you are committed to excellence and want to know more about WE platform, WEE platform, message founder Sabrina Farmer Protech on Facebook or email her at www.agelesstechniques.com. Back to Thriving Women Talk.
Awesome. Welcome back to Thriving Women Talk. And if you're just joining us or if you've been following along, you just heard Stephen Smith with Your Home Doctor. Stephen, really quick, wanted to just give you a quick second. How can our listeners find you, and how can you learn more about your company?
Sure. Yeah, the best place to go is www.yourhome.doctor. Some folks get a little confused. There is not a .com at the end of it. It's yourhome.doctor. There you can learn more about telemedicine as an industry. You can also go there as an individual and sign up for our services. There's 3 different levels of services depending on what your needs are. And these services actually cover your entire household, not just the individual. So please go out, take a look at that. And again, if you have any questions, we do have a telephone number on the site. But again, that's yourhome.doctor.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us and the impact that your company is having on families across the country. It's certainly been a pleasure getting to know you, and hope to be able to visit with you again soon.
Very good. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Of course, you're welcome. So you guys, we're going to switch gears. We have had so many opportunities to visit with so many different people, and on our Facebook group, the Trendsetter Mentor group, we have an author blog for our listeners to participate in. Those who love to read, maybe you're looking for a new book, maybe you're looking for just some new content, some pick-me-up. So we have invited today with us a couple of the authors from our author blog segment. So for the next 10 weeks, we've invited some national authors to blog on their published books on life strategies there on the Trendsetter Mentor group. So I wanted to ask if Liza is on the line, and maybe Michelle. I know that we're running short on time, and it's been a challenge to get on the line. So if either of you guys are on, please say hello. Maybe not. It's been our technology today has been fun. Definitely with the transition, everybody's working from home now, and these platforms have been just inundated with, I don't know, I think it's blowing up. Even classrooms are using Zoom and other platforms like the one that we're using today to really get the communication going and get the word out. So if you've recognized that you've been challenged with getting on our show, we definitely appreciate that you are here. And I don't know if those ladies were able to join in or not, but they are certainly doing a great job of blogging and communicating on our Facebook page. So again, that Facebook group is the Trendsetter Mentor group, and if you would love to learn more about it, I would love to connect with you on Facebook or Instagram or even Twitter. So reach out to me at Andrea Bowenzi, and I'll get you plugged into those groups where you can continue to follow along with the authors as they are sharing not only their personal journeys, but they're digging into different segments of their books. So please reach out to any of our hosts on social media, and we will get you plugged in. I want to take this time right now to thank my Thrive Tribe: Noelle Ramos, Sabrina Protic, Sherry Thompson, Stacy Solie, Deidre Pittman, Carmen Miller, Dana Washington, everybody that is joining in with us. Special thanks to joining us, and also to our producer, Daryl Johnson, and our engineer, Alan. Definitely grateful for the work that you guys are putting in behind the scenes. I know there's a lot to cover, a lot of content out there, and you guys are doing a great job of sifting through the data and also making sure that we are running smoothly and online. So again, thank you to those gentlemen. And most of all, we wanted to thank you, our loyal listeners from around the world. Wouldn't be able to do this without you. So next week, we're going to continue our conversation on how we can continue to thrive while dealing with this global crisis. Thank you guys for taking the journey with us. It's not something that we've all done before. It's certainly uncharted territory, and we are navigating this together. So I appreciate your participation. Again, Thriving Women Talk is powered by the Trendsetter Mentor Group, a membership for mentorship. And you can follow all of our hosts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as I mentioned. So please reach out to us, send us a message, and we would love to connect with you. If you're interested in joining the Trendsetter Mentor Group or being a guest on the Thriving Women Talk, please email our producer, Daryl Johnson, at npartners@yahoo.com. That's N as in Nancy, partners with an S, @yahoo.com. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I trust that you have now some new golden nuggets that you can apply in your life with our new quarantine measures. So appreciate you joining and love each and every one of you. I just want to take this opportunity to thank you and let you know that we believe you will continue to thrive and not just survive. So you guys have an amazing day. Take care, and we will see you all back here next week. Bye now.